You got to become a risk taker. Write that down. Viscott said, if you're not willing to risk, you can't grow. And if you can't grow, you can't become your best. And if you can't become your best, you can't be happy. And if you can't be happy, then what else is there? You know what? I saw Dr. Norman Vincent Peale 23 years ago. But for 13 years, I wouldn't take the chance. For 13 years, I was living in my comfort zone. For 13 years, I kept saying, Les Brown, you can't do that. Les Brown, you can't have that kind of audience. Les Brown, you don't have the oratorical skills. You don't have the knowledge. You don't have the money. I kept saying, I can't do that. There's an old African proverb that says, if there's no enemy within, the enemy outside can do us no harm. Bishop talks about the enemy in me. If there's no enemy within, how many of you know that you've been your own worst enemy? Raise your hands. So you've got to be willing to get outside your comfort zone. No one could have told me that the willingness to get outside of my comfort zone, the willingness to fail, the willingness to try, to experiment, the willingness to take some chances, the willingness to do something I'd never done, that in the last 12 years, for 13 years, I didn't do it. I convinced myself I couldn't do it. Then the last 12 years, I've earned in excess of $14 million. Let me tell you something. $14 million, a good garden and a healthy hog, and you can make it through the winter in Birmingham, Alabama. Do you hear me? No one could have told me I have 2 books, Live Your Dreams, and it's not over until you win. No one could have told me, born in an abandoned building on the floor, labeled educable, mentally retarded, no college training. No one could have told me I would have produced 5 specials for public television. That I'd had 3 years ago, the highest rated, fastest canceled talk show in the history of television. Because I wouldn't do those conflict and controversy shows. No one could have told me. I had no idea that I could do what I'm doing right now. Let me tell you what I know about you, and I don't know you. You got greatness within you. One of Dr. King's mentors, Dr. Howard Thurman, said something one night. I was reading and I couldn't sleep. He said the ideal situation for a man or woman to die is to have family members standing around their bed, praying with them as they cross over. He said, but imagine, if you will, being on your deathbed and standing around you are the ideas, the dreams that have been given to you by life, the talents, the gifts that you've never nurtured, that you never developed, the skills that you never did anything with, standing around your bed looking at you with large, angry eyes, saying, we came to you. Only you could have given us life. And now we must die with you forever. And the question is, if you died now, what dreams, what ideas, what talents, what abilities, what skills, what books, what sermons, what seminars, what businesses will die with you? Miles Monroe said the wealthiest place on the planet is not in the Far East, where they have oil in the ground. It's not in South Africa, where they have diamond mines. He said the wealthiest place on the planet is the cemetery, because there you find dreams not pursued, books never written, songs never sung, sermons never delivered, businesses never erected, talents never nurtured, skills never developed. You survived 1 out of 40 million sperms. You were born to win. God wants you to be rich and wealthy and successful and to live the abundant life. You must affirm that for yourself every day. So as you look at yourself and you look at your life and you look at your circumstances, as you work on your goals and your dreams, here's some things I want to give you. Write this down. Hold yourself to high standards. See, what if Bishop T.D. Jakes had decided when he first received the idea of the Manpower Conference that it could not be. What if he had allowed that idea to die? We would not be here. See, many of you here, you are pregnant with some ideas. I'm telling you what I know. I will leave here this afternoon, tonight, in 1 hour, doing what I'm doing now. In 1 hour, I'll earn in excess of $150,000. I had no idea that I had the capacity to do what I'm doing right now. You've got genius in you. You're made in the likeness and image of God. You've got greatness in you. You have some special stuff in you. You showed up with it. So as you look at your life and you decide to become a risk taker, make it okay to fail, to experiment, trial and error. Repeat after me, please. No test, no testimony. Yeah, you're going to face some hard times. When you decide that you're going to commit your life to Christ, you're going to, at that time, go through unadulterated hell. What's the first thing they say when you get on an airplane before they take off? Fasten your seatbelt. Why? Because you will experience some turbulence before you reach a comfortable altitude. Life was testing me when the man looked at me and said, "You have prostate cancer. Your tumor is too large to have the surgery. We're going to give you radiation seed implants." The most anybody's ever gotten was 90. They gave me 238. I went back 3 weeks ago. They checked my PSA level, which indicates the presence of cancer in your prostate area. 1 to 4 is normal. Beyond that is that you have cancer and it's spreading. When I first went a year ago, it was 6.1. When I went 3 weeks ago at Howard University Hospital, they gave me an MRI, it was 10.5. The guy said, "I'm sorry to tell you this." I said, "What do you mean?" "You're in the same situation that you were in when you came here." Here's something I heard. At Christ Universal Temple Church, at a restaurant, Bishop T.D. Jakes was praying for a lady in a wheelchair. And it's odd how things come to you. When he finished praying for the lady, I'm sure there were some questions were asked that weren't verbal, that if the prayer worked, why didn't she get up and walk? And what he said as he was walking away, healing takes place first. He said healing takes place first in the spirit. It didn't matter about his numbers. It didn't matter about their diagnosis. Judge not according to appearances. You must have the faith to call forth those things that be not as though they were. Now, do you really believe? See, it's one thing to believe when you got money in your pocket. It's one thing to believe when your marriage is working out and you got your health and your children acting like they got good sense. Oh, it's good to say, "Oh, the Lord is blessing me." It's easy to believe then. Oh, but when you get that diagnosis, say you ain't gonna be here long. When you lose your job, when someone you thought you'd be with for the rest of your life said, "No, we can't do this no more," that's when you have to stand. That's when you have to begin to live this faith. And that's not on you. That's when you got to call on something. However you let that mind be in you, you got to be out of your mind to believe in spite of these numbers, you can still make it. In spite of the pain you're feeling, you can still come back again. You got to be out of your mind. That's right. I'm in that Christ mind. I believe it. And not when things are just favorable, not fair weather faith. And you've got to believe that. When you're going out here with your ideas, with your products, with your services, and part of being successful is you got to hold yourself to high standards. I use Bishop Jakes as a model. His people take care of you. He's thorough. Hold yourself to high standards, whatever you do. There's no saying, do not go where the path may lead, but go where there's no path and leave a trail. Treat people with respect. Treat them the way that you want to be treated. Tony, who's with me, who's been assigned to me, courteous, respectful, called several times. Is there anything I can do for you? Can I help you out? That's first-class service. If you decide to provide first-class service, John H. Johnson, a book called Making Against the Odds, he said, there's no defense against an excellence that meets a pressing public need. When I decided to become involved in the motivational industry, I didn't have the money of a Dr. Norman Vincent Peale, of Zig Ziglar, of Tony Robbins, and all the other giants out there. I had the gift of gab. So what I did was I trained myself, I disciplined myself to read 3 to 4 books a week. First I started out a month. Now I've increased it with a reading system that I have. Mr. Washington said, Mr. Brown, yes, sir. Do you want to make it? Yes, sir. First, you've got to develop your mind, young man, because you don't get in life what you want, you get in life what you are. Next, you've got to develop your communication skills. Once you open your mouth, you tell the world who you are. They said about Jesus, who obviously was an effective communicator, never spec a man. The reason that you are here is because no one can milk scripture and deliver a sermon that can transform your life and have you jumping up and down like you crazy, like T.D. Jakes. I'm home one day looking at this video my daughter gave me called He Called Me Son. Let me tell you something. By the end of that video, and I've never seen my father, when that video got to the end, I was going to the television and said, Daddy! Daddy, come back, Daddy! I pushed reverse and backed it up and said, Daddy! Let me tell you something. He just broke me down in my bedroom. All by myself. I'm looking around to see if anybody see me. That man crafted that message, you hear me? I'm crying like I'm at a funeral. I want my daddy. See, that's a gift. You hear me? That's a gift. Your people use his word anointed. They should not, only place I've ever seen it applicable is in his case. That's the only thing. I mean to tell you, I think I'm a good speaker, but this is a bad boy we got up in here. Words cannot encompass the symbolism of what we have the chance to see up in here. And yet, he's down to earth. I mean down to earth, where all these little funny outfits he has. I mean, it knocks me out. And let me tell you what my daughter said to me. My daughter, my oldest daughter, is on his advanced team. She said, you know what? I was listening to Dion last night, and I think I'm going to call Bishop Jake's daddy too. I said, I wish you would. I mean, I'll throw you out here right now and break his leg by calling him daddy.
Les Brown is in the house, the School of Greatness, my friend, who has been around for 75 years young. You told me just before we got on here, you've been fighting cancer for 27 years. You've been widely known as one of the most inspirational, motivational speakers in the world, helping Fortune 500 companies to small business owners to everyone in between really tap into their greatness. You're an inspiration to myself and so many people. And you've got a book called You've Got to Be Hungry that's out right now that is doing incredibly well, and it's 20 years in the making. And I'm curious, we've been talking just before this, which we'll add in the interview, about racial injustice, which you've been a big proponent of speaking out against for many years, in your time working in Ohio, in government, in your time working in radio, as a speaker, as all these different areas of your life. But you've just been through a lot personally of challenges in your life from, we have a similar story of growing up dyslexic with learning disabilities, with challenges in school. I remember the story you shared in our last interview in 2017 about, teachers just calling you dumb and things like this. I feel very connected to that story because of my experiences in school. And yet you've overcome so many challenges in your 75 young years. Can you share the biggest challenge you've had to overcome?
The biggest challenge I had to overcome, and it's a continuous challenge, is allowing myself to see myself beyond my circumstances and mental conditioning, to live out of my imagination rather than my history. When you are raised in a culture that constantly demean you, marginalize you, and stifle your potential to move forward. I remember reading a quote by a guy named Richard Wright who said, "The impulse to dream has been slowly beaten out of me through the experiences of life." So just imagine in 1963, when I graduated from high school, now that's a long time ago. my grandson said, "Grandpa, how old are you?" And I said, 75. He said, "You are old." In 1963, here's what the statistics were in 1963. That if you're an African American, you're the last hire and the first fire. If you're an African American, that a white college-trained black person has less of a chance of getting a job than a white high school dropout. That's in 1963. Wow. According to the Federal Reserve, that still exists. So just imagine when an African American graduates from college and in debt, that a white high school dropout today will earn more money, 3 times more money than that black college graduate. 3 times more, all right? Why? Because of his paint job. I'll never forget, Louis, I saw an interview with Larry King, and this white supremacist was being interviewed, and he said, "Tell me, why do you hate black people?" He said, "Because they're black." So, and he said, "And?" He said, "And I'm white." So Larry said, "What did you have to do with that?" And this white supremacist said, "What?" He said, "What did you have to do with your being born white?" And he didn't have an answer. He just got quiet. And Larry, in that question, that strategic question, it created an aha moment, hopefully, for that young man. I saw this video yesterday. This lady said, "I've got grandchildren. I hate y'all, and I'm teaching my grandchildren to hate you too."
Wow.
Yes, and I'll never forget when I was on a bus coming back from Miami Beach with my mother, and they had signs on Miami Beach that said, "Jews, dogs, and coloreds not allowed." And so I asked my mother, I said, "Mama, why do they hate us so much?" And she said, "Leslie, I don't know, but don't you ever be like them. Don't you ever be like them. God is love. And he who dwelleth in love dwelleth in God and God in them." You love people regardless of how they treat you. That grabbed me because when she could have very easily, because of experiences that she had, it taught me to be hateful, because hatred is taught. It's people not born with that. And a little boy asked me, a second grader, "What do you mean by you gotta be hungry?" I said, "The greatness within to win." I said, when the average person start out in life, don't realize the odds are stacked against them. And you have got to call on everything in you to get ahead. I said, "How old are you?" He said, 7. I said, "When I was 5 years old, I was downtown Miami, and it was like 95 degrees. And I ran to a water fountain. I was with my mother. The neighbor said, "Mamie, we can watch the other 6, but you're gonna have to take Leslie with you because he's a little touched in the head." So they didn't want to keep me. So I let my mother's dress go. We went downtown with her. We would hold her dress because she would walk a little fast. And I ran up to this water fountain, Louis, and I started drinking water from it. And my mother said, "Don't you ever do that again," and grabbed me by the neck. And I talk about this in the book. And she started punching me and in the face and the head. And I was shocked. I said, "Mama." She had this crazed look in her eyes. I said, "It's me, it's me, Mama." And all of a sudden, a white police officer came by and he said, "Okay," he had a billy club in his hand. "You can stop beating that little boy now. I won't have to beat him." And he looked at me as I was crying and just laughed.
Wow.
As he walked away. And my mother, she grabbed me and I was crying and she said, "Leslie, I'm so sorry." But when I saw the redness in his face and how he had his billy club out and he was coming to beat you with it, she said, I had to do something to distract him. She said, because had he hit you with that billy club, he would have had to kill me.
Oh my
and I'd
gosh.
left you and your brothers and sisters to fend for yourselves. You have no relatives. And at that moment, 5, I knew that there was 2 worlds. I was in a world where I was limited, where I could, what water fountain I could drink from. When we got on the bus, there would be seats up front, and there would be a yellow line, and there were standing room in the back where Black people were seated, and Mama would say, "Keep moving." I said, "Mama, there are seats up here." "Did you hear me say, keep moving, keep moving?" So when you are in that kind of environment where you are judged based upon nothing other than the color of your skin, that's very humiliating. I had another experience that that really tilted the scale for me being the person that I am. And because I love my mother, I'm a mama's boy. I always say this is the Mrs. Mamie Brown's baby boy. and so I was determined that I was going to create a world that my mother could live in and not be humiliated and to not be held back, and a better life than she had lived in Stuart, Florida, and what I experienced coming up in Miami, being African American. For so many things, it was just a part of the culture, things that exist now. But to believe and understand that it's going on now, it's surprising. But what is heartwarming is the broad scale support. Something that Benjamin Franklin said. He said, change will never come about until those who are unaffected are as outraged as those who are.
Wow.
Okay? And so you have white people who are unaffected by this, but they're outraged. They're saying, hey, this is not right. And they're putting themselves in harm's way. I saw one white lady, they shot her with rubber bullets and she lost her eye. She's permanently blind in one eye. And so there have been places where the white turnout and other groups are very strong, with people out of a sense of humanity saying this is not America. And it's been sustained because the people can see it. And to see George Floyd have his life taken away. The guy who did that, one of the guys who was right there near him, where he could have said to the cop that was on George Floyd, "Come on, man, come on." He said he can't breathe. "Come on, it's 4 of us. He's handcuffed. He can't get away from us. Come on, get your knee off his neck." He didn't do this. So this lady saw one of the guys in the grocery store who was charged with complicity. And she said, "Do you have any regrets?" He said, "No."
Wow.
No. So therefore, he thought it was okay to take this guy's life for a $20 counterfeit bill. that they found not to be counterfeit. You know, so to lose your life and someone say, when you are asked, do you have any regrets? And you say no. Man, let me tell you something, that's heavy. That says a lot.
Yeah. Do you feel like we haven't really progressed that much at all? Or is there progress?
No, I think there's been great progress. There's no question about that. No question. You just have people who, this is for the first time under this leadership that we have, that feel comfortable coming out. So there are people that this level of hatred has been instilled and passed on generation after generation after generation. What makes it seem so pervasive and so dominant has been the exposure. It's never been exposed like this. The internet, that's why North Korea and various dictatorships don't allow media to have the right to expose things, the inequities and the unlawful behavior in their country, including our country. Had it not been for the internet, we would not know about this, because the television executives had a meeting after the Rodney King riots and say, when something like this happens again, we will not show it. Wow. We will just report it. Okay, so, but the internet, because of the telephones, now these cops have been getting away with murder. They can't just get away with it. Although even when they go to court, 93.9% get off, never go to court. And of those who are indicted, maybe around 2% are sentenced and found guilty, because the judge and the prosecuting attorney is on the side of that officer. So
well, I feel like they can always make a case, I guess, for, well, he was attacking me and this is in the law on how we can defend ourselves as police, right?
When they asked the cops, why did you beat this guy that I said, this man served our country in Vietnam. He should not be treated like that. He was holding a baby. And they said he was fighting with one hand. And okay, come on. When I was on the air, and this is in the 80s, I editorialized against police brutality and deadly use of force. They said he had a threatening stance, so I shot him. One guy I'll never forget, he was in the car and police approached the car and they shot him 5 times. And they said he held his hand up, even though he didn't see a gun, but he moved his finger and he thought that he had a gun. And so they killed him and they got off with it. So they come up with any type of flimsy excuse. I thought my life was in danger. Like the guy here in Atlanta was shot 5 times in the back, and they said they thought he was going to turn around and shoot with a taser. And the truth of the matter is that cop was mad because his taser was taken away from him. So he pumped 5 bullets in him. He said, no, there will not be a trial here. This is taking place now. And so that level of madness and lack of value for human life, it's deep in the culture, but it's
how did you personally overcome? Yeah, and how did you personally overcome so much from racism as a young child when your mother essentially had to beat the crap out of you in order to defend you from the police beating you up even more, to not being able to sit anywhere on the bus that you wanted to go on, to just having the challenges at school, to your career? How did you personally learn the skills to overcome so many challenges in the world, in your internal mind and world, and in life? The title of the book, You Gotta Be Hungry, the greatness within to win. Greatness comes out of adversity. And the defining moment for me was when my mother was working for a lady named Miss Harris. I was responsible for cleaning some spots off the floor. My mother was called by Miss Harris. She said, Mamie, I want you to go in another room and find a hat that I'm looking for, the one I had 3 Sundays ago. And when my mother went in that room, I heard a slapping sound.
I heard my mother clapping her hands. And I said, Mama, I was curious. I said, why are you clapping your hands? She said, don't you worry, Leslie. You just keep on doing what you're doing and get those spots up off the floor. Then she came out of the room and she said, Miss Harris, I don't see it in there. So she said, well, go in this other room. And Mama went in the other room, and sure enough, she started clapping her hands again. And I said, Mama. She said, what? She was aggravated now. I said, why are you clapping your hands? She said, didn't I tell you to do what you're supposed to do? But at that moment, Miss Harris came over and she stood over me. She said, I can tell you why she's clapping her hands. And I stood up and I looked in the eyes. Now, during this time, as a black person, you were not allowed to look white people in the eyes. You should always look down, okay? Or you could be arrested or beaten. So I looked her in the eyes and she said, the reason that I have your mother clapping her hands, when I have colored people working for me and I can't see them when they go in another room, I make them clap their hands to make sure they're not stealing.
Oh my goodness.
I said, ma'am, I said, Miss Harris, let me tell you something. My mother does not steal. When she talked about you and your family, she said, I work for Miss Harris, and she talked about our children, and she knows all your children's names and their birthday. My mother is an honest person. She'll never steal from you or anybody. And she was so shocked, but she just looked at me and she just turned and walked out of the room. And when I got back down on that floor, Lewis, and started scrubbing that floor, I said, nobody will never make my mother clap her hands again because they think that she's will be stealing. I remember going back on the bus and I was quiet and she said, Leslie, why are you so quiet? I said, because I'm not a man. I want to be a man. She said, you'll be a man soon enough. You're 10 years old. How long before I become a man? 8 years. I want to become a man now. She said, why? I said, if I was a man now, Mama, I can buy groceries for us. Listen, Mama, and we won't have to wait till the people you work for eat and then give us leftovers. If I was a man now, I would not have to wait until somebody's worn clothes for a year and we wear their hand-me-down clothes. And if I was a man now, nobody will ever make you clap your hands because they think that you're stealing. She said, Miss Harris told you that, didn't she? I said, yes, ma'am. That's why I want to be a man now. And she just got quiet. She said, Leslie, don't worry about it. Just be a good boy. Be a good boy. And I said, I will, Mama. I'm going to take care of you. You'll never have to work again when I turn 18. When I turned 18, I took care of my mother until she passed at 89. She never paid another bill. I worked. Yeah, that tilted the scales.
That experience, that moment.
Yes, that to make her, she was such a wonderful person, only had a third grade education. And I always say I'm on programs, I said, because of two women. One gave me life, the other one gave me love. God took me out of my biological mother's womb and placed me in the heart of my adopted mother. So she was quite a woman. Yes, she was. I'm a mama's boy, as you can detect.
Yeah.
Life is a fight for territory. And once you stop fighting for what you want, what you don't want will automatically take over. Give you an example. 27 years ago, I was diagnosed with prostate cancer.
27 years ago, my gosh.
Yeah, fourth stage cancer. And fourth stage prostate cancer, my PSA was 2,400. And so Dr. Alfred Golson said, Mr. Brown, you have fourth stage cancer. I said, I do? He said, yes. And it's metastasized to 7 areas of your body and it's eaten 43% of your T1 vertebrae. I said, whoa. He said, what? Why are you smiling? Did you hear what I just said? I said, yeah. He said, why are you smiling? I said, man, 7 is my lucky number. I was born February the 17th. Joshua marched around the walls of Jericho 7 times. Naaman dipped himself in the River Jordan 7 times. 7 is my lucky number. He looked at his nurse and said, "This is a strange one." So I said, "Can you give me a second opinion?" He said, "Yes. And you're ugly too." It's called me ugly, but you didn't go there. He said, "You're ugly." He said, "But you got this. You got this." I don't tell patients that they're terminally ill. What I say is my knowledge and my ability and my skills are terminated. Now you and God figure this out. He determines the prognosis. You got this. And as a result, how people live their lives, as you know, is a result of the story they believe about themselves. He interrupted my story, and I left there with a heart full of faith, not a heart full of fear. Zig said, most people in a fearful situation, they forget everything and run. But there are a small number, the road to life is straight and narrow, a few there be that find it, who face everything and rise.
Oh my gosh.
And so the people who listen to you when you speak, and when I say that you are the most talented speaker on the planet, is because when you speak, what you do is distract, dispute, and inspire. You distract people from their story. As you know, the psychologists call that self-explanatory style. And through the execution of your presentation or the guests that you interview, that you dismantle their current belief system and inspire them to come, as Mother Teresa would say, a pencil in the hand of God and start writing a new chapter in their lives. That's what you do with the products that you have, the guests that you have, and how you have decided that you are going to live a life that will outlive you. And God bless you for it.
Live a life that will outlive you. Oh my gosh. Everybody, I'm just sharing this treasure with you. So you've got to follow this man. You've got to get his book. Guys, listen, I have a lot of people on my show that I admire. This man changed my life. I mean, there's a part of me, this is a very strange interview for me, Mr. Brown, because I'm in and out of it in my mind. I'm talking to Les Brown right now. I've spent...
I'm fascinated to be talking with you. You don't know how often I've met you that said, "This is my brother from another mother."
Thank you. You're making my day. Speaking of,
how old are you? How old are you?
50 this year.
Oh, I got T-shirts older than you. Well, I'm 75.
Oh my gosh! I got to tell you. By the way, speaking of brothers, this is an interesting thing about you. You're a twin.
Yes.
And when you were young, this is so hard for people to believe. They see this man who can recite poetry and scripture and quotes like this, to think that at some point you were labeled as, were you labeled as mentally retarded as a child?
When I was in the 5th grade, I was labeled educable mentally retarded and put back from the 5th grade to the 4th grade at Douglas Elementary School in Miami, Florida. And then when I was in the 8th grade, I failed again. But I had a man who was very much like you, because I consider you a master communicator, Mr. Leroy Washington. And I walked in his class looking for a friend. It was really a God moment. And he said, "Young man, go to the board and work this problem out for me." I said, "Sir, I can't do that." He said, "Why not?" I said, "I'm not one of your students." He said, "Do it anyhow." I said, "I can't, sir." And the other students started laughing, saying, "He's Leslie. He's got a twin brother, Wesley. Wesley's smart. He's DT." And he asked, "What's DT?" And they said, "He's the dumb twin." And they erupted in laughter. And I said, "I am, sir." And he came from around his desk. He looked at me. He said, "Don't you ever say that again. Someone's opinion of you does not have to become your reality. Do you hear me?" I said, "Yes, sir." He interrupted the story that I believed about myself. My mother said, "Sticks and stones can break your bones, but words can never hurt you." But words do hurt deeply. But on that day, Denzel was in a movie called Touch, and he said, "There are moments in life, there's before this and there's after this. And after this, nothing will ever be the same again." And my life was interrupted because he interrupted this vision that had been planted in my mind by words. Words affect behavior. And that's why I'm excited about training people how to create an experience to transform people individually and collectively. Because when we look at where we are, that's more important than ever before. The cultures and hatred and divisiveness, all of these things are fomented with words. Our lady came for me to train her from Australia, and I said, why did you come to me? She said, when I look at all the divisiveness and hatred and violence, she said, it's done by a few people, but there's too many people are silent, and I have a voice, and I want to be a voice for love. I said, whoa. She just gave me goose pimples, man.
Yeah. Wow. I love it. This teacher, speaking about that on voice, because the third thing was communication. I literally shared this with my son when he went away to college. This teacher stopped you when you're in that classroom, correct me if I'm wrong, and said, listen, there's 3 things that you need to have if you're going to prevail in this life. Yeah. And everybody, this is where you right now, if you've got children around you, you go grab them right now. Because I've shared this with both of my children. This is compelling stuff right here, because this was one of those moments where your life was not the same again after he delivers this message to you.
Yes, yeah. He said, you have to work on your mind. He was a person who believed in Earl Nightingale, who said, you don't get in life what you want, you get in life what you are. Dr. Carter G. Woodson, if you can determine what a man shall think, you never have to concern yourself with what he will do. If you can make a man feel inferior, you never have to compel him to seek an inferior status, for he will seek it himself. And if you can make a man feel justly an outcast, you never have to order him to go to the back door. He'll go without being told. And if there's no door, his very nature will demand one. He said, develop your mind. Next thing he said, practice the principle of OQP, only quality people. Today, in order for us to make it, even before the coronavirus, the suicide rate in America had increased by 32%. Today, in order for us to make it, we have to create what we're doing now, collaborative, achievement-driven, supportive relationships. One of the major issues we're facing right now is loneliness. And one of the major determinants of a long life, I thought it would be plant-based diet or becoming a vegetarian or a vegan or exercise. It's positive social relationships. That's the main factor. And the third thing that he said, Mr. Brown, develop your communication skills, young man. Because once you open your mouth, you tell the world who you are. Your ability to communicate humanizes you. You explain it so well when you talk to people about the number one skill that they need. If they're negotiating, if they want to advance their careers, if they want to create a movement, they want to promote their business or promote themselves. That skill, had I not had that skill when I was fired from working for the Miami Sanitation Department, if I didn't have the ability to communicate, I would not have been able to be a salesman at Sears or do door-to-door sales. I would not have been able to become a disc jockey. I would not have been able to become a state legislator in Columbus, Ohio, and pass 14 bills my first term. And I was elected the third term, 3 terms, and then my sister called me and said, Leslie, are you sitting down? What's wrong with Mama? Mama has breast cancer. I said, I'll be right there. She said, Leslie, you don't have to come. We found a good nursing home for her. I said, listen to me. No. She adopted 7 will be there when she takes her last breath. And I left that day, and I'll never forget when I rung the doorbell, a friend of hers named Miss Mildred, she came to the door. She said, oh my God, Mamie, Leslie's here. And I heard my mother's voice said, I knew my boy would come. I knew my boy would come. And I came in and her things were packed. I said, unpack everything. I said, Mom, I'm here. I'm here. And so it's...
Wow. This thing with your mom, do you know who Art Williams is? You remember Art Williams? He used to be a speaker.
All you can do is all you can do, and all you can do is enough. But
there you go.
You do all you can do. I study everybody.
I know you do. Listen to you.
Zig Ziglar, if you give enough people what they want, they'll give you what you want. Jim Rohn, when the end comes for you, let it find you conquering a new mountain, not sliding down an old one. I study them all.
Because the reason I ask you this is when I introduced you as the greatest speaker that I've ever seen, and by the way, I think that shortchanges, I believe, greatest teacher, communicator that I've ever seen in my life. And the other one that made the impact on me was Art Williams, who I know you would both agree with. There was an amazing communicator, still is.
Yeah.
And so I met him one time, and he gave me a nice compliment about a talk I had given. And so I said, well, there's two I've ever seen in my life. And I said, it's you, Mr. Williams. And I said, and then Les Brown's in a class all his own. And I said, he's so talented and gifted. And he stopped me. And this leads to your mother. Again, a situation that I know about, I'd like you to share. And he goes, he's not that talented and gifted. He's a worker. He works. Les works at it. This is a skill he's developed. He wasn't born with this. He's worked at it. If you knew the people I know, this guy is on the road. He works. And then I was listening to you, and this amazing, your mother's this theme in your life, but when you were a young boy, your mother lost the ability to work. And so I think the story is she starts sort of like making a little moonshine to sort of support the family, right? And something happens, and I think you're like 10 years old, something like this, right? And then you got to take over. Would you just share this? Because I think everything happens for us, not to us. Our test will be our testimony. And the messes of our lives don't disqualify us. I think so many people think this mess I'm in, this divorce, this business failure, this choice I made I'm not proud of, that I'm ashamed of, it disqualifies me. My background, my upbringing, I'm disqualified. Turns out you can turn those things into be your testimony. And this situation with your mom, I think, triggered this work ethic in you at a young age that Art told me about.
Yes, Mama, she started selling homebrew and moonshine, and it was difficult for us at that time, for her raising 7 children. She was injured on a job, and so she promised our birth mother that these children will never go to bed hungry. We will always have a roof over our head, and clothes on our back. And a man came. I'll never forget what you're talking about. So you've done your research as much as I've been doing research on you. You and I are so much alike. and this guy, his name was Calhoun, and he knocked on the door. He said, Leslie, how are you doing? I said, fine. Mama always said, don't ever open the door without telling me. And I said, oh, hey, Mama, hey, no, don't tell her. I've got 2 friends with me. We're going to surprise her. Open the door. And I opened the door and let them come in. And one of the guys grabbed me. I was 10 years old in the throat and hit me on the side of the head and threw me up against the wall. And he said, she's back there in the room. And they went back there, and Mama was selling homebrew and moonshine. And he said, pull up the linoleum. And they pull up the linoleum, and she kept it under the floor of the house that we were in. And they brought Mama out in handcuffs. I said, Mama, I'm so sorry. And she said, it's okay, Leslie. It's okay. And she never, ever, ever mentioned it when she came back. And so we don't have any relatives. We adopted. So the neighbors, they will come in and bring us food from time to time. And I would collect copper and aluminum, and sometimes stand in the corner. Hey, boy, come over. And get on the truck with older men to move heavy equipment. But years later, fast forward, man, I had it in my heart. If I ever saw this guy again, I'll kill him. And boy, God, boy, he has a sense of humor. Here I am talking to my young son, John Leslie, who's a speaker and trainer. I said, John Leslie, anger is a wind that blows out the lamp of the mind. He said, what do you mean by that, Daddy? I said, don't allow anger to govern you. Never make a decision while you are angry. It blows out the wind of the mind. You'll make decisions and do things that you will regret later. At this time, a guy comes over and tapped me on the shoulder. And he said, hello, sir. I just want you to know, we here in Miami are so proud of you. I had a talk show at King World that paid me $5 million to do the Les Brown talk show. Now look, I'll never forget his face. I said to myself, oh my God, it's Calhoun. Now here's my son here, and I'm looking at this guy's face and put my mother in jail. And man, I get short in the breath, and John Leslie said, "Dad, are you all right?" I said, "No." And this guy, he just kept on shaking my man. Yes, Leslie, man, you really making us all proud. And I said, "Excuse me, sir, excuse me." And I went outside, and my son said, "What's going on? Is there something you ate?" I said, "No, John Leslie. I gotta go." I said, "Let's get in the car. I gotta go." He said, "What's happening, Dad?" And I drove away for a little while, and I parked on the side to collect myself. I said, "That man, he's the one that put your grandmother in jail. And I promised if I ever saw him again, I would kill him." He said, "Oh God." I said, "John Leslie, you know what? It's a God moment." He said, "Why?" I said, I got that hatred out of my heart for him because you were here. I have to model what I'm teaching you. People say, practice what you preach, but now God put it in me. I got to preach what I practice. I got to forgive. And forgiveness is not forgetting. Forgiveness is remembering without anger. I forgive him, but most of all, I forgive myself. Please forgive me, God, for carrying this anger and hatred all these years. Yeah, it was deep. I've never told this story before.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, this thing, you know, Forrest Gump had a point. Life is like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get. That's all I got to say about that.
I can't believe you just shared that with us.